Well, joining us on this edition of the News Review, we have our correspondent Amin Alami, who's joining us from the Afghan capital, Kabul. Also, we have author and researcher Greg Simons, who's with us from Uppsala. Let's start off with Amin. Please give us an update about the latest violence, the uptick in violence that we've been seeing in Afghanistan over the past 24 hours.
Well, about both the Afghan government military sources as well as the Taliban militant group are saying that they have expanded their military operations and attacks against each other. As a result of rising Taliban attacks across various districts of Afghanistan, at least 20 districts have been captured by the militant group over the last month. The Afghan government, mainly Afghanistan's defense ministry, says that they have tactically retreated from these districts, and that this is not the story of collapse of those districts across Afghanistan, mainly in northern, southern and some key areas in eastern parts of this country. But in the meantime, some of public uprising groups or forces have also retaken some key districts in Faryab province mainly, as well as in Ghazni. For instance, I can point out to the latest fierce fightings between Taliban militants and public uprising forces in the southern Gilan district of Ghazni province, as well as in northern Faryab province of Afghanistan. In both incidents, the public uprising forces successfully recaptured the district centers that have already been collapsed into the hands of the Taliban militant group. But let's not forget that insecurity is on the rise in Afghanistan, and security situation is too fragile across this country. For instance, I traveled to some provinces to southern Afghanistan just a few days ago. The Taliban militants are heavily controlling the Kabul highway and many provinces on this highway, mainly Ghazni and Logar provinces, Ghazni, Logar and Wardak provinces. They have their own checkpoints on the highway. Instead, the Afghan military forces say that at least over 70 Taliban militants are being killed on a daily basis as a result of military operations conducted by Afghan military forces across Afghanistan. For instance, according to a recent statement released by Afghanistan's defense ministry, over 85 Taliban militants were killed across Ghazni, Faryab, Nangarhar, Paktia, Parwan, Panj.
All right, let's bring in Greg Simons, who's with us from Uppsala. Mr. Simons, if you're with us, please give us your thoughts on the upsurge in the violence in Afghanistan, and ultimately whether you think these peace talks will bring a final solution to the long-time war in Afghanistan.
Well, I mean, this is coming into the old adage that war is politics by another means. I mean, this has been said for millennia now. And this is operating at a couple of different levels. The first level is the United States. As a declining empire, it's doing what other declining empires have done, and that is to withdraw from the periphery first. And that usually precipitates some kind of chaos. I mean, this has happened throughout history. If we look at when the Roman Empire started withdrawing from the frontiers, you had this upsurge in fighting. And secondly, it's what is happening inside Afghanistan. Afghanis by now presumably know that it's a limited time for US to be there. So now they're positioning for power. I mean, it kind of brings back some reflections about the American withdrawal from Vietnam. Both sides knew the Americans were going. The Americans had concentrated on building up firepower and the amount of weapons and people there, but did not take into account the will and commitment to fight, which the other side, although the weapons are less, have a greater will and commitment to fight. So I think that this will probably lead to a scenario where US has attempted to prop up its client states in the past, has resulted in the overthrow of those authorities they put in place.
All right, thanks a lot, Greg Simons, author and researcher, joining us from Uppsala. Earlier, we were also speaking to our correspondent, Amin Alami, speaking to us from Kabul. With that, it brings us to an end here on this edition of Press TV's News Review.